Ben. Here we are inside Nick's 49 Ford. One of the first things that you're going to notice about Nick's car is he doesn't have the standard old school Pro Street tin interior. What he does have though, however, is the rear seat delete option, and he also has a roll bar, of which it's nicely covered in ivory leather. Portage Trim in Portage, Ohio did a great job of making this car very comfortable for Nick to drive. What you're also going to notice, power seats with power lumbar makes great for cruising. You're going to notice power brakes, power steering, and he also has air conditioning. Nick also went as far to add a gear bender over-under drive unit that allows this car to still have a very powerful motor, the big tires, very tall gears that can go down the road very comfortably without revving too high. We're back at the trunk of Nick's 49 Ford. Portage Trim continued the same ivory leather theme throughout the trunk of the car, but Nick added a little old school Pro Street touches himself. You notice 2 polished aluminum battery box, an exposed polished aluminum fuel tank. But now let's kick it over to Denny so he can tell you a little bit more about this car with Nick.
Folks, the owner of this beastly 1949 Pro Street Ford is Nick, also known as Hollywood Loverkovic.
Gee, thanks, Dan.
Before we get started, what is Hollywood?
Just a little help from my friends.
A little help? Is it something that we can't talk about on TV?
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, we'll leave that alone.
Okay.
Let's talk about how this car even started. Where did it involve?
Well, the car actually came from my cousin when he passed away. Passed
Wow.
away at 49 years old. He had it from when he was 18 years old. And we said, we'd finish the car. We finished the car.
You did finish the car, and that's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, obviously that brings a lot of sentimental reasons behind building the car. Let's talk about how did you come up with the Pro Street theme, the color, so forth.
The Pro Street was just something we like. I mean, pretty much all of them we're putting together anymore. We like Pro Street.
Oh, yes.
We enjoy it. It takes a lot more work, but it's a good look
It's
when
the
you're
mean
finished.
look going down the road.
Yeah, when you're finished.
What about the color? It's very
Color
nice color.
was picked by my cousin before he passed away, and
Oh,
we added a little pearl on top of it to accent it a little bit.
that's awesome. I'm sure he sees it. Because I'll tell you what, he can hear it. Let's talk about the 49 Ford. You know, what a nice body lines and so forth. You know, where did you go to this? This chassis was done in a, professionally at CNC.
Yeah,
I think.
M&M Chasse out of sale.mov did the chassis underneath it. They do all types of chassis work, but this was kind of an oddball in his shop because everything in his shop is lightweight.
Right, race versions.
Yeah.
This is lead sled time.
This is lead sled. Yeah.
So how many ponies do you think you got underneath the hood?
They rated it around 700 horsepower.
Was it dynoed or just
No,
estimated?
just estimated.
Just estimated. Well, let's estimate and see if Mike can handle those 700 ponies underneath the flip front end. Mike, what you got underneath the hood?
Well, here we are on the intake of Nick's 49 Ford. You look at the motor, it says Pro Street. Nick started out with a 460 Ford block, had it bored out to 484 cubic inches, and topped it off with a Wien tunnel ram. On top of that tunnel ram, 2 Holley 600 CFM carburetors. If you also look down at this motor, you're going to notice a serpentine belt system on the front end. You're also going to notice full scavenge exhaust into 2-inch one-off custom headers that are actually exiting the other side of the frame rails closest to the rocker panels. This package that Nick put together makes about 700 horsepower. Yes, folks, I said that right. 700 horsepower, and it's hooked up to a C6 transmission out to his rear end. This car gets great gas mileage with the addition of the gear bender's overdrive, and Nick can drive it all day without it overheating because he actually put in an aftermarket aluminum radiator which keeps the whole package nice and cold. And speaking of cold, Nick also wanted to keep himself cold, so he added a full vintage air conditioning system. Now let's send it over to Denny and see what he has on the suspension of this car.
Folks, we're at the heart and soul of a Pro Street car, and that is the suspension. The reason being is you don't take these 31 by 1850 tires and just bolt them on. If you did, the tires would be actually all the way out here, and they're about this high. So to do that and get the car to sit at this ride height, you're going to have to change the frame first. And to do that, there's 2 options. Number 1, you can put a back subframe clip where you narrow the rear end, narrow the frame, and you weld a subframe onto the existing, basically the stock frame up front. To do that, it's a very simple installation back here, and it's quick and easy, but Nick took the better route. He changed the entire frame. He scrapped the original 49 Ford frame and put a 2x4 box chassis underneath this car made by M&M Chassis out of Salem, Ohio. That being said, you can choose your ride heights both front and back. Out back here we have 4-link suspension with a 9-inch Ford, coilovers. It can raise the frame up to whatever height he wants because you have tall tires. To get the car down, the tire's coming up as you get it lower. So you have to set up this whole suspension, and they did a very good job. Up front, you have a lot more work with basically a new chassis because none of your mounts happen. You don't have original bumper mounts. You don't have your front end mounts. To do that, he had to create all new mounts for this entire front end, and he put a flip front end, which we talked about earlier, and that's a very good touch. But he also could adapt a Mustang 2 suspension. Tubular A-arms with coilovers gives you better drivability, performance, and I think a much cleaner look. With that being said, he then can expose this front end with confidence because it's a very, very impressive front end and it fits this car perfectly. So as you can see, this 49 Ford packs a lot of punch, but it's done the right way. And I tell you what, if you floor it, it's going to perform.